What would you do if one mistake erased your entire life? Evelyn Carter thought she was signing a witness form. Instead, she signed her soul away to the most dangerous man in the empire. No escape, no annulment, and he's standing in her family's foyer right now, claiming her as his property. This is the story of how an invisible woman became the one person a ruthless duke couldn't control, and how a forced marriage turned into a war neither of them expected to survive. Stay until the end to see how she burns his world down and rebuilds it in her image. Drop a like and comment which city you're watching from. The pen felt heavier than it should have. Evelyn Carter stared at the document spread across the mahogany desk, her sister's breathless voice echoing from the hallway where wedding preparations had turned the house into controlled chaos. "Sign here as witness," her mother had said. "Just a formality. Catherine needs you to witness the pre-marriage agreement." Formality. The word tasted like dust. She pressed the nib to paper, watching ink bleed into expensive parchment. The signature came out crooked. Her hand had cramped from addressing 200 wedding invitations the night before. Catherine hadn't written a single one. Catherine never did the work. That was Evelyn's role. The practical daughter, the invisible one, the 24-year-old spinster who kept the household running while her younger sister prepared to marry into one of the wealthiest merchant families in the city. The door exploded inward. Not opened. Exploded. Wood cracked against the interior wall hard enough to shake the paintings. Evelyn jerked back, pen clattering to the floor, ink splattering across her simple gray dress. 3 men filled the doorway. No, not men. Predators in expensive suits, the kind of people who made servants disappear into wallpaper. The one in front made her lungs forget how to work. He was tall, but that wasn't it. Plenty of men were tall. This man wore height like a weapon, shoulders cutting a silhouette that seemed to carve darkness from the afternoon light. His coat was black, not fashionable charcoal or midnight blue, but the flat black of closed coffins. Silver buttons caught lamplight like knife edges. His face could have been handsome if it had contained even a trace of warmth. Instead, it looked carved from marble by someone who'd forgotten to add humanity. His eyes found hers. Gray. Storm cloud gray. The kind of gray that promised violence. "You," he said. One word. It landed like a death sentence. Evelyn's mother appeared behind the men, her face chalk white. "Your Grace, there's been a terrible—" "Be silent!" The woman who'd commanded households for 30 years shut her mouth mid-word. Evelyn had never seen her mother obey anyone, ever. The man, the Duke, apparently, moved into the room with the fluid precision of something that hunted for sport. His companions remained at the door, blocking escape routes Evelyn's hindbrain had already started calculating. He picked up the document from the desk, eyes scanning the text with the speed of someone who'd spent a lifetime reading contracts designed to trap fools. "Evelyn Margaret Carter," he read. "Is that you?" Her throat had gone dry. Yes. Do you understand what you've signed?" "A witness form for my sister's marriage agreement." Something flickered across his face. Not quite amusement. Darker. "Read it." He thrust the parchment toward her. Evelyn took it with shaking hands, confusion warring with the first cold tendrils of real fear. She scanned the ornate header. The legal language her mother had told her was standard boilerplate, darling. Don't worry about the details. The room tilted. Marriage contract stared back at her from the top line. Between Adrian Lucian Blackwood, Duke of Thornmere, and— her eyes found her own name. Not in the witness box at the bottom. In the bride's signature line. "No." The word came out strangled. "No, this is wrong. I was told— my mother said—" "Your mother," the Duke, Adrian Blackwood, said softly, "received £50,000 3 weeks ago to arrange this contract. She's been spending it on your sister's wedding to the merchant's son. A wedding that was never going to happen because your sister was already promised to me." Evelyn's head snapped toward her mother. What is he talking about? Her mother wouldn't meet her eyes. The woman who'd raised her, who'd taught her to embroider and manage servants and keep the household books when father's gambling debts started piling up, that woman was staring at the carpet like it held the secrets of the universe. "Tell her," Adrian said. "Or I will." Her mother's voice came out thin. "We needed the money. Your father's debts, we would have lost everything. Catherine's match with the Pemberton boy was already arranged, and it's a good match, a safe match, but we needed capital now, and the Duke's offer, "You sold me." Evelyn heard her own voice from very far away. "You sold me to him." "It's not like that. You told me to sign as a witness. You wouldn't have agreed otherwise." Her mother's composure cracked. "You would have argued, made demands, ruined everything like you always do when you think you know better than your elders. This way was simpler, cleaner. Cleaner, like she was a transaction, a problem solved with forged consent and a mother's lie." Adrian's voice cut through the ringing in her ears. "The contract is legal, binding. You signed of your own hand, witnessed by 3 members of my household staff who observed through the window. No coercion can be proven. The marriage will proceed." "I'll contest it," Evelyn said. "I'll go to the courts." "With what money?" His smile was a razor blade. "Your family's creditors will seize this house by month's end. You have no property, no independent income, no legal standing. I, however, have 12 lawyers and the favor of the Lord Chancellor. We can play this game if you'd like. I'll win. I always win. The only question is whether you'd prefer to become my Duchess with some dignity intact, or after I've systematically destroyed everything you've ever known." The room had gone silent, except for her mother's quiet weeping. Catherine appeared in the doorway, still in her dressing gown, hair in curling papers. She looked between Evelyn and the Duke with the calculating expression of someone doing rapid mathematics. "This is about the Thornmere marriage?" Catherine's voice held something Evelyn had never heard before. Relief. "Mother, you said it was handled." "It is handled," their mother snapped. "Evelyn signed." "Good," Catherine actually smiled. "Henry and I can proceed then. I was worried we'd have to delay." Something broke inside Evelyn's chest. Not her heart. That was too simple. Something structural. A weight-bearing wall between who she'd thought her family was and what they actually were. "You knew?" She looked at her sister. "You knew they were doing this?" Catherine shrugged. "Mother explained weeks ago. It's actually perfect. You weren't going to marry anyway, and this way the family's secure. Henry's family won't accept damaged goods, so I need to be free and clear." "You're doing everyone a favor, really." "A favor? Don't be dramatic. You'll be a duchess. That's more than you ever would have gotten on your own." The men at the door shifted, uncomfortable. Even they, whoever they were, enforcers or lawyers or both, seemed disturbed by the casual cruelty. Adrian watched it all with those storm-gray eyes, cataloging, calculating. "We leave in 1 hour," he said. "Bring whatever you can pack in that time. Everything else will be sent later or replaced." "I'm not going anywhere with you." He stepped closer. Not threatening. He didn't need to threaten. His presence did that work. "Yes, you are. Because your alternative is staying here with people who betrayed you, in a house that will be seized by creditors, watching your sister marry well on money earned from selling you. Or you can come with me, live in the second largest estate in the country, and at least have the comfort of knowing I'm honest about what I want." "And what do you want?" "A duchess. Someone presentable who won't cause scandals or expect affection. Your mother promised me a Carter daughter with acceptable breeding and no romantic delusions. She suggested Catherine initially, but when the Pemberton match materialized, she offered you instead. I accepted. The terms are clear." Acceptable breeding. Evelyn tasted bile. "Like a horse." "Exactly like a horse." He didn't flinch. "I need an heir. You need security and distance from a family that views you as currency. We both get something. That's more than most marriages offer." Her mother stepped forward. "Evelyn, please, be reasonable. You've always been the reasonable one." Reasonable. The word felt like poison. "I've been convenient. There's a difference." She looked at each of them. Mother, sister, the Duke with his brutal honesty, his men at the door. The walls of this room, papered in silk her mother had ordered when father was still alive and money still flowed. She'd helped hang that paper. She'd held the ladder while Catherine complained about the color. 15 years of being useful, of being the practical one, the one who sacrificed so others could shine, and now they'd signed her away without even the courtesy of truth. 1 hour, Adrian repeated. He produced a pocket watch, gold, expensive, probably worth more than this entire house. "I'll be waiting in the carriage. If you run, I'll find you. If you make a scene, I'll handle it. If you come quietly, I'll ensure your family's remaining debts are cleared and this house stays in your mother's name. Your choice." He left. His men followed. The door clicked shut with terrible finality. Evelyn stood in the wreckage of her life, looking at the two women who'd raised her and betrayed her in the same breath. "Pack something nice," her mother said quietly. "First impressions matter." Then she left too, heels clicking down the hallway toward Catherine's room, where a wedding that should have been canceled would proceed exactly as planned. Evelyn was alone. She looked at the contract on the desk, her signature mocking her in cramped handwriting. The pen lay on the floor in a spreading pool of black ink, staining the imported carpet. That would be expensive to clean. The thought came automatically. She'd spent years worrying about expenses, managing the household budget her mother pretended didn't exist. Not her problem anymore. She laughed. It came out wrong, sharp and broken. Then she went upstairs to pack. Her room was small, always had been. Catherine had the large bedroom with the attached sitting room and the windows overlooking the garden. Evelyn had the converted servants' quarters with its single narrow window and sloped ceiling. She'd never complained. Practical daughters didn't need space. She pulled her trunk from under the bed, the same one she'd brought from boarding school 8 years ago when father died and mother called her home to help manage things. Helping had turned into running the household while mother maintained appearances, and Catherine prepared for advantageous marriage. "What did you pack when your life ended?" Evelyn grabbed dresses mechanically. The good ones went in first. She had 3. Simple cuts, quality fabric, but nothing fashionable. She'd learned to sew well enough to maintain them herself. The everyday dresses followed, undergarments. Her mother's jewelry box sat on the dresser. No, not hers. She'd been borrowing pieces for years, but none of it belonged to her. She left it. Books. She had 12, bought used from the market with money saved from household accounts. She packed them all. Then her father's journal, the one he'd kept before gambling, destroyed him. Her mother didn't know she had it. No one did. A knock at the door. "It's open," she said. Mrs. Hensworth entered, the housekeeper, the only servant they'd kept on after the debts started mounting. She was 60, gray-haired, and had known Evelyn since childhood. "Miss Evelyn," her voice was soft. "I heard. I'm so sorry." Evelyn kept folding a dress. "Did you know?" "Not until this morning. Your mother told the staff after the Duke arrived. We're all in shock." "Not enough shock to object." "It's not our place to object, miss. You know that." She did know that. Servants didn't interfere with family business. But something in Mrs. Hensworth's tone made her look up. The old woman held out a small leather purse. £300. I've been saving it for years. Plan to retire to the country eventually. Take it." "Mrs. Hensworth, I can't." "You can, and you will." The housekeeper's eyes were fierce. "Your mother's a fool, and your sister's a selfish child. You've held this house together with spit and prayer. That man downstairs, I've heard stories about the Duke of Thornmere. He's not cruel, but he's not kind either. You'll need resources of your own. Money he doesn't know about." Evelyn took the purse. It was heavier than she expected. "Thank you." "Hide it well. Men like that control everything. Keep something he can't touch." "What stories?" Evelyn heard herself ask. "About the Duke." Mrs. Hensworth hesitated. "He's powerful. Old family, older money. His father was worse. They say the old Duke broke men for sport. Adrian Blackwood inherited Young 15 years ago, and he's built an empire since. Shipping, rail, property. He owns half the city one way or another. People who cross him tend to disappear from society." "Disappear how?" "Quietly, completely. There was a baron who tried to cheat him on a timber contract. 3 months later, the baron's assets were seized for unpaid debts no one knew existed. He's in debtor's prison now. The Duke doesn't lose." "And his wives?" "Wife, singular." Mrs. Hensworth's face tightened. "She died 6 years ago. Riding accident, they said. He hasn't remarried since. Won't talk about her. Had all her portraits removed from Thornmere Hall." "A widower, then. Buying a replacement duchess like one might replace a broken lamp." "Thank you," Evelyn said again. "For everything. For being honest. You're a good girl, Miss Evelyn. Better than this family deserves." The housekeeper squeezed her shoulder once, then left before emotion could crack her professional composure. Evelyn finished packing. The trunk wasn't even half full, 15 years of life compressed into one bag. She changed into her best traveling dress, navy blue with black trim. Appropriate for a woman entering mourning. That's what this was, wasn't it? A kind of death. She looked at herself in the small mirror above the dresser. Brown hair, brown eyes, unremarkable features. Not beautiful like Catherine, not charming like Mother had been in her youth. Just serviceable, acceptable breeding. The clock showed 45 minutes had passed. She picked up the trunk, heavy but manageable, and walked downstairs. Each step felt like descending into cold water. The house was quiet. No one came to say goodbye. She could hear voices from Catherine's room, mother and sister discussing dress alterations like nothing had changed. The front door stood open. Afternoon light cut across the marble entryway, illuminating dust motes and golden shafts. She used to think this was a grand house. Now it felt like a pretty prison she was being expelled from. The carriage waited outside, black lacquered wood with the blackwood crest on the door. A wolf's head, silver on black. Appropriate. One of Adrian's men took her trunk without a word. The other opened the carriage door. Adrian sat inside reading what looked like a legal brief. He didn't look up as she climbed in. Didn't acknowledge her at all until the door closed and the carriage lurched into motion. Then he set the papers aside. You came. You would have dragged me if I didn't. Yes. No apology. But you chose to walk. That shows sense. Or cowardice. There's no shame in tactical retreat. He studied her with those calculating eyes. Your mother tried to negotiate for more money after I left the room. I told her the contract was final. Of course she did. You're not surprised? No. He leaned back against expensive leather upholstery. Tell me what you expected from life before today. Why? Because that life is over. I want to know what I'm replacing. The audacity of it, the casual acknowledgement that he'd erased her future, should have made her angrier. Instead, Evelyn felt something colder settling in her chest. Clarity, maybe. I expected nothing, she said. Expected to manage my mother's household until she died, then probably live with Catherine and her husband as the spinster aunt who helps with their children. Expected to be useful until I wasn't, then be shuffled off to some cottage somewhere to fade away quietly. Sounds terrible. It was the best option available. And now? Now I'm property. Slightly different, not notably better. His mouth twitched, not quite a smile. You're not property. You're an investment. There's a difference. Is there? Property can be discarded. Investments must be protected to yield returns. He crossed his arms. I won't lie to you, Evelyn. I don't need a love match. I need competence. Someone who can manage Thornmere Hall, represent the family at social functions, and eventually provide an heir. In exchange, you'll have security, position, and freedom to pursue interests within reasonable bounds. Reasonable bounds. Don't embarrass me publicly. Don't take lovers. Don't waste money on foolish ventures. Beyond that, I don't care what you do. How generous. It is, actually. His voice hardened. Most husbands would demand obedience and affection. I'm demanding neither. I'm offering a business arrangement with clear terms. You forced me into this. Your family forced you. I'm simply the buyer in a transaction they initiated. He pulled out a document. Another one. Always more contracts with men like this. This is an amendment. Sign it, and you'll receive an annual allowance of £5,000, yours to spend without my approval. Additionally, any children we have will be provided for independently of my estate, so their security doesn't depend on my goodwill. Evelyn stared at him. Why? Because I watched your mother sell you like livestock, and your sister celebrate it. I know what it's like to be used by family. Something dark crossed his face. I won't pretend to be a good man, but I keep my word, and my word is this. Play your role, and you'll be treated fairly. Fight me, and I'll make you regret it. Choose. The carriage hit a rut. Outside, the city was falling away, replaced by countryside. They were leaving her entire world behind. Evelyn took the pen he offered. She signed. Smart, Adrian said. We'll reach Thornmere Hall by nightfall. The household staff will show you to your quarters. We'll marry in 1 week. I've already arranged the license. After that, you'll have 6 months to learn how to run the estate before the social season begins. Questions? Just one. Go ahead. Do you feel anything at all about this? He looked at her for a long moment. I feel satisfied. I needed a duchess. Now I have one. That's sufficient. Sufficient, she tested the word. What a terrible goal. Most people don't achieve even that much. He returned to his papers, clearly considering the conversation finished. Evelyn turned to the window, watching fields roll past. Somewhere behind them, her mother was probably already spending whatever money Adrian had provided. Catherine was likely trying on her wedding dress, and she was riding toward a new cage with a jailer who spoke in contracts and treated human beings like investments, requiring protection. The worst part wasn't the fear. It was the small, traitorous voice in her head whispering that this cold transaction with a stranger might actually be better than what she'd left behind. At least he'd been honest about what he wanted. That was more than her family had ever given her. Thornmere Hall rose from the hillside like something that had conquered the landscape rather than been built upon it. Stone the color of storm clouds, towers that scraped the darkening sky, windows that reflected nothing but their own black glass. The estate stretched for miles in every direction, forests, fields, a river cutting through the valley like a silver scar. Evelyn's hands had gone numb somewhere during the last hour of travel. She flexed her fingers, trying to restore circulation, trying not to think about the fact that this fortress was now supposed to be home. The carriage rolled through iron gates that looked designed to keep things in as much as out. Gravel crunched under wheels. Somewhere in the distance, she heard dogs barking. Not friendly sounds, hunting sounds. Adrian hadn't spoken in 2 hours. He'd worked through 3 separate stacks of correspondence, signed documents, made notes in margins with the focused efficiency of someone who viewed every moment as currency to be spent wisely. He looked up only when the carriage stopped. "Welcome to Thornmere," he said. No warmth. Statement of fact. The door opened. A footman in black livery extended a gloved hand. Evelyn climbed down, legs stiff from hours of sitting, and immediately understood why the servants dressed like mourners. The entire estate felt like a memorial to something dead. Staff lined the entrance steps, 20 of them, maybe more, arranged by rank, all watching her with the blank expressions of people trained to observe everything and reveal nothing. At the front stood a woman who could have been carved from the same stone as the hall, tall, iron-gray hair pulled back severely, face that had forgotten how to smile decades ago. "Mrs. Thorne," Adrian said. "This is Miss Carter. She'll be the new Duchess after the wedding. Show her to the East Wing." The woman's eyes flickered over Evelyn with surgical precision, cataloging every detail, finding her wanting. "Of course, Your Grace. Should I assign personal maids?" 2. Experienced ones. He turned to Evelyn. "Mrs. Thorne runs the household. What she says is law below my word. Obey her and things will run smoothly." Then he walked inside, leaving Evelyn standing on the steps, with 20-odd strangers staring at her like she was a problem requiring solution. Mrs. Thorne's mouth tightened. "This way, miss." The inside was worse than the outside. Dark wood paneling that swallowed lamplight, portraits of dead blackwoods glaring from walls, furniture that looked expensive and uncomfortable in equal measure. The air itself felt weighted, like the house was holding its breath. They climbed a staircase wide enough to drive a carriage up. The paintings here were different, landscapes mostly, except for one massive canvas showing a woman on horseback. She was beautiful in that fragile way that made men write poetry. Dark hair, pale skin, laughing at something beyond the frame. Evelyn stopped. "Who is that?" Mrs. Thorne didn't look at the painting. "The late Duchess. His Grace had it hung here after she died. It's the only portrait of her he kept. What was her name?" "We don't speak of her, miss. His Grace's orders." The housekeeper's tone made it clear that subject was sealed tighter than a tomb. "Your rooms are this way." The East Wing was less oppressive. Lighter wood, fewer portraits of disapproving ancestors. Mrs. Thorne opened double doors onto a suite that would have swallowed Evelyn's childhood home. Bedroom, sitting room, dressing room, private bath. Furniture upholstered in cream and gold. Windows overlooking gardens that probably looked beautiful in daylight, but now resembled a maze designed to trap the unwary. "Your trunks will arrive shortly," Mrs. Thorne said. "Dinner is at 8. His Grace expects punctuality. A maid will fetch you. Wait. Evelyn turned from the window. I need to understand the household. How many staff? What are my responsibilities? The housekeeper's eyebrow rose fractionally. Your responsibilities, miss, are to look appropriate and not cause disruption. The household has run perfectly well for 6 years without a duchess. We don't require management. But His Grace was clear. You're to rest, prepare for the wedding, and learn your place. Mary and Susan will attend to your needs. Good evening. She left before Evelyn could argue further. The door clicked shut with the finality of a cell locking. Evelyn stood in the center of a room larger than her entire floor at home, surrounded by luxury that felt like a gilded cage, and laughed. It came out bitter. She'd traded one prison for another. This one just had better furniture. The maids arrived an hour later, girls barely out of their teens, nervous and silent. They helped her dress for dinner without meeting her eyes, arranged her hair without speaking, and vanished the moment they finished. Evelyn wanted to tell them she wasn't the enemy, that she'd been a servant herself in everything but name, but their fear was palpable. Whatever Adrian Blackwood was to his staff, it wasn't kind. The dining room could have hosted 50 people. Instead, it held 2 place settings at opposite ends of a table long enough to require shouting to be heard. Adrian sat at the head, already eating, still reading documents propped against a wine glass. Evelyn took her seat. A footman materialized to serve soup. French onion, perfectly prepared, utterly tasteless because her throat had closed. You're late, Adrian said without looking up. By 30 seconds, perhaps. 30 seconds compounds. It becomes a minute, then 5, then habitual disrespect. He turned a page. Don't be late again. She set down her spoon carefully. Is this how meals work here? Silence and documents? Usually I eat in my study. I'm making an exception for your first night. How generous. It is, actually. He finally looked at her. I have 3 board meetings tomorrow, a contract negotiation, and a property dispute that requires my attention. Sitting here is time I'm spending to establish expectations, which are, I've told you, punctuality, competence, discretion. He returned to his reading. The wedding is set for Saturday. Guest list is minimal. Necessary witnesses, the bishop, a few political allies who need to see me settled. You'll wear white, say your vows, sign the register. Afterward, there's a small reception. Smile, be polite, don't drink too much. You've planned my wedding without asking what I want. What you want is irrelevant. This is a legal formality, not a romance. Something hot flared in Evelyn's chest. You're right. It's not a romance. It's a business transaction. So let's discuss terms like business partners instead of you issuing commands like I'm another servant. The room went silent. Even the footman stilled. Adrian set down his documents. Excuse me? You heard me. Her heart was trying to escape through her ribs, but she kept her voice level. You told me I'd be a duchess. That means I should have responsibilities commensurate with the title. Instead, your housekeeper informed me the household doesn't require management, and I should stay decorative and quiet. Mrs. Thorne said that? In so many words. He stood abruptly. Come with me. What? Now. He walked out. Evelyn hesitated for 3 seconds, long enough to register that obeying felt like surrender, then followed. She had to practically run to keep up with his long strides. They passed through corridors she didn't recognize, downstairs into what must be the working areas of the house. He stopped at a door, knocked once, and entered without waiting. Mrs. Thorne looked up from a ledger, surprise flickering across her face before professional blankness restored itself. Your Grace, I wasn't expecting... You told Miss Carter the household doesn't require her management. The housekeeper's jaw tightened. I told her we have systems in place. I thought it would ease her transition. You thought wrong. His voice could have frozen water. Miss Carter will be the Duchess of Thornmere. As such, she outranks you. If she asks about household operations, you will provide complete information. If she makes changes, you will implement them unless I personally countermand her orders. Is that clear? Your Grace, the household has run smoothly under my direction. I'm not disputing that. I'm establishing chain of command. He glanced at Evelyn. Do you have questions for Mrs. Thorne? Evelyn's mind raced. She hadn't expected this. Hadn't expected him to back her authority before it even existed officially. How many staff work at Thornmere? Mrs. Thorne's lips pressed into a thin line. 63 permanent staff. Additional workers are hired seasonally for groundskeeping and harvest. What's the annual household budget? £28,000. Who approves expenditures? I do, for amounts under £50. His Grace approves anything larger. Evelyn looked at Adrian. And after the wedding? After the wedding, you approve expenditures up to £500. Above that requires my signature. He turned back to Mrs. Thorne. The Duchess will also review household accounts monthly. Prepare summaries for her inspection. The housekeeper's face could have been granite. As you wish, Your Grace. Good. He walked out, leaving Evelyn facing a woman who now looked at her with something far more dangerous than contempt. Pure calculation. Yes. Evelyn caught up with him in the corridor. Why did you do that? Do what? Give me authority I haven't earned. He stopped walking. You're going to be my wife. That gives you authority, whether you've earned it or not. Better to establish it now than fight about it later. Mrs. Thorne hates me. Mrs. Thorne hates everyone except the memory of the last Duchess. She'll obey you anyway because I've commanded it. He studied her face. Are you afraid of her? Should I be? Probably. She's been here 30 years. Knows where every body is buried, literal and figurative. Something like amusement crossed his features. But fear can be useful. It keeps you sharp. You're not what I expected. What did you expect? Cruelty. You bought a wife like livestock, then forced her into marriage. I expected a monster. I am a monster, he said quietly. I'm just a practical one. Cruelty without purpose is wasteful. You're more useful confident than broken. He walked away, leaving her standing in a hallway in a house that felt like it was actively hostile, with authority she didn't understand and enemies she couldn't identify. But he'd backed her. That had to mean something. The next 3 days passed in a blur of preparation. The maids, Mary and Susan, she learned their names, were friendlier once word spread about the confrontation with Mrs. Thorne. Apparently the housekeeper's authority being challenged was entertainment enough to make Evelyn marginally less terrifying. She explored the house during daylight. Thornmere was a maze of corridors and locked doors, rooms that looked like no one had entered them in years. The servants gave her wide berth, watching from corners, whispering behind hands. On the third morning, she found the library. It was hidden in the south tower, accessible through a corridor that dead-ended at what looked like a linen closet. But the back of the closet had a door, and that door opened onto stairs, and those stairs led to the most beautiful room Evelyn had ever seen. Books, thousands of them, floor to ceiling on all sides, spiraling up 3 stories connected by iron catwalks. Leather bindings, gilt lettering, the smell of old paper and wisdom preserved. Sunlight streamed through windows that overlooked the valley, dust motes dancing in golden shafts. She stood in the center and felt something unlock in her chest. No one uses this anymore. Evelyn spun. A young man stood in the doorway, early 20s, disheveled brown hair, ink stains on his fingers. Not dressed like a servant, too rumpled for a guest. I'm sorry, she said. I didn't mean to intrude. You're not intruding. You're the almost Duchess, right? Miss Carter? He grinned. I'm James, Adrian's cousin. Technically third in line for the title, though that's more theoretical than practical since he's about to marry you and produce heirs. James Blackwood. James Ashford, actually. My mother was Adrian's father's sister. She married poorly, a scholar with no money. So I'm the embarrassing poor relation who lives in the East Library and catalogs books no one reads. He gestured at the shelves. But you read, I can tell. How? You looked at the books before you looked at me. Dead giveaway. He pulled a volume from a nearby shelf. This whole section is philosophy. That corner is history. Natural sciences on the second level. Literature on the third. If you want to borrow anything, just tell me so I can update the catalog. Evelyn took the book he offered. Plato, in Greek. You catalog in multiple languages? 6 languages, actually. Occupational hazard of too much education and not enough practical skills. He leaned against a reading table. Fair warning, most of the house thinks you're either very brave or very stupid for agreeing to marry Adrian. Which do you think? I think you didn't have much choice, so bravery and stupidity are both irrelevant. His smile faded. He's not a bad man, but he's not an easy one either. His father broke something in him when he was young. He learned to survive by being harder than anyone else. What happened to his father? Riding accident. Very sudden, very convenient timing. James's expression was carefully neutral. Adrian was 22, inherited everything. The title, the debts, the enemies his father had collected like trophies. Spent the next 5 years consolidating power and crushing anyone who thought they could take advantage of a young duke. And his first wife? James's face shuddered completely. We don't talk about Vivian. Everyone keeps saying that. Because Adrian will destroy anyone who does. She died, he grieved in whatever way men like him grieve, and then he locked that door and threw away the key. He pushed off the table. My advice? Don't ask about her. Don't compare yourself to her. Don't try to fill whatever space she left. Just be yourself, and maybe you'll survive this. He left through the same hidden door, disappearing into the house's shadows. Evelyn stood among thousands of books, holding Plato, thinking about a dead woman whose name was forbidden and a man who'd learned to survive by becoming something harder than human. Then she started reading. The wedding day arrived with gray skies and cold wind. Evelyn woke to maids bringing breakfast and a dress she'd never seen before. White silk, beautifully tailored, completely impersonal. It could have been made for anyone. His Grace had it commissioned, Mary said quietly. From London. The seamstress used your measurements from the dresses you brought. So he'd gone through her clothes, cataloged her dimensions like she was another asset requiring inventory. The ceremony was held in the estate's private chapel, a small stone building that smelled of incense and old prayers. 20 guests filled the pews. Evelyn recognized none of them. Adrian stood at the altar in black, no expression, looking like he was attending a contract signing rather than a wedding, which she supposed he was. The bishop was old, efficient. The vows were traditional. Adrian's voice was steady when he promised to honor and keep her. Evelyn shook when she echoed the words back. The ring he slid onto her finger was heavy, platinum, set with a diamond that probably cost more than her childhood home. You may kiss the bride. Adrian leaned in. His lips brushed hers for exactly 1 second, brief, cold, perfunctory. Then he stepped back. It's done, he said. The reception lasted 2 hours. Politicians and business associates congratulated Adrian on his acquisition with all the subtlety of men discussing a successful horse trade. Their wives smiled at Evelyn with the kind of pity reserved for condemned prisoners. She stood beside her new husband, smiled until her face hurt, and wondered if this was what drowning felt like. The guests left before sunset. Adrian disappeared to his study with 3 men in expensive suits, leaving Evelyn alone in her bridal dress in a house full of strangers who were now her responsibility. She changed into a simple dress and went to find Mrs. Thorne. The housekeeper's office was locked. Evelyn knocked. No answer. She found the woman in the kitchens, overseeing dinner preparation with the focused intensity of a general preparing for battle. The staff scattered when Evelyn entered. Mrs. Thorne didn't look up. The Duchess should be resting after such an eventful day. The Duchess wants to see the household accounts you were supposed to prepare. They're not ready. You had 3 days. I've been managing the wedding preparations. Mrs. Thorne's knife cut through vegetables with mechanical precision. Surely they can wait another week. No. Evelyn moved closer. They can't. I want them by tomorrow morning. The knife stopped. Mrs. Thorne set it down carefully, turned to face her. You think because you've married him you have power here? I think I have authority he granted me. Authority is given. Power is earned. The older woman's smile was razor thin. You're a girl playing Duchess in a house you don't understand. His Grace will tire of this fantasy soon enough, and when he does, things will return to proper order. Proper order being your control. I've run Thornmere for 30 years. Through the old Duke's cruelty, through his son's grief, through everything this family has endured. I've kept it standing when others would have let it collapse. She stepped closer. You're temporary. A political necessity. I'm permanent. Remember that. Evelyn felt ice settle in her stomach. The accounts. Tomorrow morning. Or I'll tell my husband that you're refusing direct orders. Tell him. Mrs. Thorne's confidence was absolute. See which of us he believes. She walked out, leaving Evelyn standing in the kitchen with staff who wouldn't meet her eyes. So Adrian found her in the library 2 hours later. She was reading, or pretending to read, because sitting in her rooms felt like admitting defeat. "You're not at dinner," he said. "I wasn't hungry." He closed the door, locked it. Evelyn's pulse jumped. "Mrs. Thorne came to see me," he said. "Claims you're making unreasonable demands and disrupting household operations. She refused to provide the accounts you ordered her to prepare. She says she's been too busy with wedding preparations." "And you believe her?" "I believe she's run this estate flawlessly for 3 decades. He leaned against the door. "I also believe you're picking fights you're not equipped to win." Something snapped inside Evelyn's chest. "Then why did you give me authority if you're going to undermine it at the first challenge?" "I gave you authority within reasonable bounds." "Reasonable according to whom? A housekeeper who's made it clear she doesn't answer to anyone but you?" She stood, book falling forgotten. "You told me I'd be Duchess. That means something, or it doesn't. Which is it? You've been Duchess for 6 hours, and in those 6 hours, I've been dismissed, insulted, and told I'm temporary, by your staff, in your house, using your authority." Fury was making her reckless. "If you wanted a decorative wife to parade at parties, you should have bought someone who specializes in that. You got me instead. I don't do decorative. I do functional. So either let me function or admit you lied about what this marriage would be." Silence. Adrian stared at her with those storm-gray eyes, calculating something. "You're angry?" "Yes." "Good." He pushed off the door. "Anger is useful. Fear makes people stupid. Anger makes them sharp." "What?" "Mrs. Thorne is testing you. I'm allowing it because I need to see if you'll break." He moved closer. "This house has enemies, Evelyn. Internal and external. The staff are divided between those who remember the old Duke's cruelty and those who serve me out of fear rather than loyalty. Mrs. Thorne controls the former. If you can't handle her, you can't handle what's coming." "What's coming?" "Social season starts in 2 months. Every noble family in the country will descend on London, and they'll all want to see the new Duchess of Thornemere. Many of them hated my father. Some of them hate me. All of them will view you as either a weakness to exploit or an ally to recruit." His smile was blade sharp. "Mrs. Thorne is practice. Gentle practice. If you can't win against her, you'll be destroyed in London." Evelyn's hands were shaking. "So this is a test." "Everything is a test. Welcome to my world." He turned to leave. "Wait." He stopped. "The accounts," she said. "I need them to understand how this household functions. If she won't provide them, give them to me yourself." "No." "Why not?" "Because I'm not your ally in this. I'm the prize you're competing for." He looked back at her. "Make Mrs. Thorne obey you, and you'll have proven you can hold power. Ask me to intervene, and you'll have proven you're weak. Choose." He left. Evelyn stood in the library surrounded by books, written by people who'd been dead for centuries, and understood with perfect clarity that she'd married a man who viewed everything, including his wife, as a piece on some vast chessboard only he could see. Mrs. Thorne wasn't the enemy, the house itself was, and she had no idea how to fight it. Yet, she spent the next day watching, following staff movements, noting who reported to whom, mapping the invisible hierarchy that governed Thornemere. The house had 3 distinct factions: Mrs. Thorne's loyalists who'd served for decades, newer staff hired by Adrian who feared him too much to risk rebellion, and a handful of others who seemed to belong to neither group, James among them, and a few older servants who moved through the house like ghosts. On the second day, she found the records room. It was in the basement, behind wine storage. A clerk worked there, elderly, half-blind, surrounded by ledgers that documented every expense Thornemere had incurred since before Adrian was born. His name was Mr. Davies, and he jumped like a startled rabbit when Evelyn appeared. "Your Grace!" He knocked over an inkwell scrambling to stand. "I wasn't... No one comes here. I need to see the household accounts," Evelyn said. "Current year. Complete records." His watery eyes blinked. "Mrs. Thorne would need to approve." "I'm approving. I'm the Duchess." "Yes, but Mrs. Thorne works for me now. Evelyn kept her voice gentle. Mr. Davies, I'm not here to cause trouble. I'm here to understand how this estate operates. Can you help me? He hesitated, then slowly he pulled 3 massive ledgers from a shelf. These are the current accounts: food, wages, maintenance, everything. She spent 6 hours in that basement, reading by lamplight, making notes. The numbers told a story Mrs. Thorne had worked hard to hide. Thornmere was bleeding money, not catastrophically, but consistently. Small overcharges on food deliveries, maintenance contracts with vendors who charged double market rates, wages for positions that seemed duplicated. Individually, each expense was defensible. Collectively, they formed a pattern. Someone was skimming, not enough to trigger immediate alarm, just enough to siphon thousands of pounds annually into pockets that shouldn't have them. Evelyn made copies of the most damning pages, thanked Mr. Davies, and went to find her husband. Adrian was in his study, naturally. He looked up when she entered without knocking, surprise flickering across his face. I found your leak, she said. She spread the ledger copies across his desk, showed him the overcharges, the suspicious contracts, the pattern of theft hiding in plain sight. He studied the numbers with the same focused intensity he brought to everything. Then he looked at her. How did you find this? I went around Mrs. Thorne, found your records clerk, reviewed the accounts myself. And you think she's responsible? I think someone is. Either her or someone she's protecting. Evelyn met his eyes. This has been happening for years. Whoever it is, they're good at hiding it. Adrian leaned back. You realize if you're wrong, you'll have made an enemy of the most powerful person in this household. I'm not wrong. Prove it. How? Audit the accounts completely. Find every discrepancy. Build a case so airtight that when I confront her, she can't deny it. His smile was dangerous. Then we'll see if you're strong enough to do what's necessary. Which is, destroy her, publicly, completely. Make an example that ensures no one ever challenges your authority again. He stood. Think you can do that, Duchess? Evelyn thought about the woman who'd sold her, the sister who'd celebrated her sacrifice, the years of being useful and invisible and disposable. Yes, she said, I can. Good. He walked to the door, then paused. One warning, Mrs. Thorne is vicious when cornered. She'll fight back with everything she has. If you're not prepared to finish this, don't start it. I'm starting it. Then finish it. He left. Evelyn looked at the ledgers spread across the desk, at the evidence of corruption that had flourished because no one challenged it, and felt something cold and focused settle in her chest. Mrs. Thorne thought she was temporary. She was about to learn otherwise. The audit took 11 days. Evelyn worked through the night, most of them, hunched over ledgers in the basement records room, while Mr. Davies brought tea and worried about her health. She tracked every expense for the past 3 years, cross-referenced vendor invoices against market rates, interviewed staff about deliveries that appeared in accounts but never materialized in storage. The pattern was worse than she'd thought. Mrs. Thorne had been stealing from Thornmere for at least 5 years, not just skimming, actively diverting funds through shell vendors, inflating purchase orders, creating phantom positions whose wages went straight into accounts Evelyn traced back to the housekeeper's own family. Conservative estimate, £40,000 over 5 years, enough to ruin a lesser estate, enough to hang for. On the 12th day, Evelyn compiled her evidence into a single leather portfolio and went looking for Adrian. She found him in the stable yard reviewing a new breeding stallion with his stable master. He looked up when she approached, took in her exhausted face and ink-stained fingers, and dismissed the man with a wave. You found something, he said. Everything. She handed him the portfolio. £40,000, minimum. She's been at it since before your first wife died. He flipped through pages, expression unreadable. This is thorough. It's damning. Take it to the magistrate and she'll hang. Is that what you want? Evelyn blinked. What I want? She's a thief. She's also been running this estate longer than I've been alive. Half the staff are loyal to her personally. If I have her arrested, there could be a revolt. At minimum, I'll lose experienced workers I can't easily replace. He closed the portfolio. So I'm asking, what do you want to happen? The question caught her off balance. She'd expected him to act immediately, decisively. Instead, He was putting the decision in her hands. "I want her gone," Evelyn said, "but I want the staff to understand why. Not martyrdom, justice." "Then you'll need to confront her publicly, in front of the household. Lay out the evidence, let her defend herself if she can, and when she can't, demonstrate that theft has consequences." His eyes were cold. "Can you do that without flinching?" "Yes. Even if she fights back, tries to destroy you?" "Especially then." Adrian smiled. It wasn't a kind expression. "All right then. We'll hold a household assembly tomorrow morning. Every staff member who can be spared from immediate duties. You'll present your findings. I'll enforce whatever judgment you recommend." "You'll let me decide her punishment?" "She challenged your authority. You defeated her. That earns you the right to determine consequences." He handed back the portfolio. "But understand, whatever you decide sets precedent. Show mercy, and people will think you're weak. Show cruelty, and they'll fear you but never respect you. Choose carefully." He walked away, leaving her standing in the stable yard with a portfolio full of evidence and the weight of a woman's future in her hands. Word spread through Thornmere like wildfire. By evening, every servant knew there would be an assembly. The rumors were spectacular, everything from Evelyn planning to dismiss half the staff to Adrian divorcing her for incompetence. The maids who helped her dress for dinner were pale and silent. "Is it true?" Mary finally whispered. "Are you accusing Mrs. Thorne of theft?" "I'm presenting evidence," Evelyn said. "What happens after depends on what she says." "She'll destroy you." Susan's hands trembled, fastening buttons. "Begging your pardon, Your Grace, but she's got friends everywhere, people who owe her. If you go after her, they'll come after you." "Let them." She said it with more confidence than she felt. Her stomach was churning. But she'd started this, and Adrian was right. Showing weakness now would undo everything. Dinner was silent. Adrian worked through correspondence. Evelyn pushed food around her plate and tried not to vomit from anxiety. "You're nervous," he said without looking up. "I'm terrified." "Good. Overconfidence is dangerous." He set down his papers. "A piece of advice. When you present tomorrow, don't apologize. Don't soften your findings. State facts and let them speak for themselves. Mrs. Thorne will try to make this about loyalty versus betrayal. Don't let her control the narrative. What if the staff sides with her? Then you'll know exactly who your enemies are. Sometimes losing reveals more than winning." He stood. "Get some sleep. You'll need clarity tomorrow." Sleep was impossible. Evelyn lay in her enormous bed, staring at ceiling frescoes of cherubs and clouds, running through what she'd say. How she'd handle questions, what she'd do if Adrian was wrong and the entire household turned against her. Somewhere around 3 a.m, she gave up and went to the library. James was there, reading by lamplight. He looked up when she entered. "Couldn't sleep either?" he said. "You heard about tomorrow." "Everyone's heard about tomorrow. The betting in the servants' hall is 5-1 against you." He set down his book. "For what it's worth, I think you're right. Mrs. Thorne's been untouchable too long. Someone needed to challenge her." "That doesn't mean I'll win." "No, but even if you lose, you'll have proven you're not a decoration. That counts for something." He hesitated. "Can I tell you something about Adrian?" "Please." "He's testing you, constantly. It's how he survived his father. Learned to evaluate people by pushing them until they broke, then deciding if the broken pieces were useful." James leaned forward. "But here's what most people don't understand. He wants you to pass. He needs someone strong beside him. The world he operates in eats weak people alive." "What happened to Vivian?" His expression shuddered. "I told you." "I know what you told me. I'm asking anyway." James was quiet for a long moment. "She was kind, gentle. Everything Adrian's father wasn't. They married young, arranged match, but they actually cared about each other. For 3 years, she tried to make Thornmere softer, kinder. She fought with Mrs. Thorne constantly, tried to reform how the household ran." He paused. "Then she went riding alone one morning, and her horse threw her, broke her neck on impact." "You don't believe it was an accident?" "I believe horses don't usually throw experienced riders on familiar trails for no reason." His voice was carefully neutral. "But there was no evidence of foul play. The magistrate ruled it accidental. Adrian grieved for exactly 6 months, then locked away everything that reminded him of her and became twice as ruthless as before. You think Mrs. Thorne killed her? I think Vivian died right after she told Adrian she planned to fire Mrs. Thorne for misconduct. I think the evidence she'd been gathering disappeared after her death. And I think Adrian knows exactly what happened but can't prove it, so he's kept Mrs. Thorne close where he can watch her. James met her eyes. Which means tomorrow, you're not just fighting a thief. You're fighting someone who's literally gotten away with murder. The floor seemed to tilt beneath Evelyn's feet. Why didn't you tell me this before? Because you needed to come to it yourself. Otherwise, you'd have backed down. He stood. Be careful tomorrow, Mrs. Thorne doesn't just play for position. She plays for survival. And survivors do terrible things when cornered. He left her alone with that knowledge, surrounded by books and shadows and the growing certainty that she'd walked into something far more dangerous than simple household politics. The assembly convened in the main hall at 9. Every staff member who could be spared stood in ranks, 60 people staring at a makeshift platform where Adrian sat in a high-backed chair like it was a throne. Evelyn stood beside him, portfolio clutched in sweating hands. Mrs. Thorne stood front and center, face carved from stone, surrounded by her loyalists. Adrian stood. The room fell silent. The Duchess of Thornmere has uncovered irregularities in household accounts, he said. She will present her findings. You will listen. Afterward, I will render judgment. Anyone who wishes to speak in defense may do so. Begin. He sat. Every eye turned to Evelyn. Her mouth was dry. Her hands shook. She forced herself to open the portfolio. Over the past 12 days, I've audited 3 years of household expenditures, she began. Her voice didn't sound like her own. What I found was systematic theft on a scale that threatens this estate's financial stability. She laid out the evidence piece by piece. The inflated vendor contracts, the phantom employees, the shell companies that existed only on paper. With each revelation, the room grew quieter. Some of Mrs. Thorne's supporters looked shocked, others looked afraid. Mrs. Thorne's face never changed. When Evelyn finished, silence stretched like a drawn blade. Then Mrs. Thorne laughed. It wasn't nervous laughter. It was contempt distilled into sound. This is impressive fiction, she said. A desperate woman inventing scandal to justify her presence. But I've served Thornmere for 30 years. My record speaks for itself. Your record shows £40,000 stolen, Evelyn said. My record shows this estate running flawlessly through 3 dukes. Mrs. Thorne turned to Adrian. Your Grace, this girl is barely educated. She's reading numbers she doesn't understand, inventing conspiracies because she needs to feel important. I've saved this household thousands through careful negotiation with vendors. At twice market rate? Evelyn pulled out a comparison sheet. I contacted every vendor you've used. Half of them don't exist. The ones that do are owned by your brother and your nephew. You're paying yourself with estate money. Mrs. Thorne's mask cracked. You contacted my vendors? I contacted every vendor in the ledgers. The legitimate ones confirmed they've never done business with Thornmere. The shell companies don't have physical addresses. Evelyn's fear was transforming into something hotter. Anger. You've been stealing from this family for years. Did you think no one would ever check? I think a spoiled child playing Duchess doesn't understand how estates operate. Mrs. Thorne's composure shattered. You've been here 2 weeks. I've been here 30 years. I've earned everything I have through service and sacrifice, through theft and murder. The words fell into silence like stones into water. Mrs. Thorne went white. What did you say? The last Duchess. Evelyn's heart was trying to break through her ribs. Vivian Blackwood. She died right after threatening to fire you. Her evidence against you disappeared. Convenient timing. How dare you? Did you kill her? Evelyn stepped closer. Did you sabotage her horse because she discovered what you were doing? Your Grace! Mrs. Thorne spun toward Adrian. Are you going to allow this slander? Adrian's face was unreadable. Answer the question. I don't have to answer insane accusations. Yes, he said softly. You do. Answer the question, Mrs. Thorne. Did you kill my wife? The room held its breath. Mrs. Thorne's hands were shaking. The Duchess died in a riding accident. The magistrate said, what I paid him to say. Adrian stood. Because I couldn't prove what I knew. But I've spent 6 years watching you, waiting for you to make a mistake. And now you have. He looked at Evelyn. Well done, Duchess. Mrs. Thorne's face crumpled. You can't prove anything. Not the money, not Vivian, none of it. I can prove the theft. Evelyn held up the portfolio. 40 witnesses, 3 years of records, your own signature on fraudulent documents. That's enough for the magistrate even without the murder. You little bitch! Venom dripped from every word. You think you've won? You've made yourself a target. There are people in this household who will never accept you. Accidents happen, girl. Ask Vivian. The threat hung in the air like smoke. Adrian moved so fast Evelyn barely saw it. One moment he was standing beside her. The next, his hand was around Mrs. Thorne's throat, lifting her onto her toes. Threaten my wife again, he said quietly, and I'll break your neck myself. Consequences be damned. He released her. She collapsed, gasping. You're dismissed, Adrian said. Without reference. Without severance. You have 1 hour to pack your belongings and leave this estate. If you're still here after that, I'll have you arrested for theft and let the courts decide if there's evidence for murder. He turned to the assembled staff. Anyone who has a problem with this decision can leave with her. Otherwise, you answer to the Duchess now. Choose. No one moved. Mrs. Thorne pulled herself upright, dignity reasserting itself even in defeat. She looked at Evelyn with pure hatred. You'll regret this, she whispered. Maybe not today. Maybe not tomorrow. But you'll regret it. She walked out, back straight, leaving shocked silence in her wake. Adrian dismissed the assembly, staff scattered like startled birds. Within minutes, the hall was empty except for Evelyn, Adrian, and the echoes of what had just happened. Evelyn's knees gave out. She sat hard on the platform steps, adrenaline crash hitting like a physical blow. Adrian crouched beside her. Breathe. Is she really gone? She's gone. He studied her face. You did well. Better than well. You didn't flinch. I accused her of murder in front of 60 people. You stated a theory supported by circumstantial evidence. There's a difference. He stood, offered his hand. Come on. You need food and rest. She let him pull her up. Her legs felt like water. The staff will hate me. Some will. Others will respect you for having the courage to do what needed doing. That's leadership, making necessary decisions and accepting the consequences. He kept hold of her hand. You survived your first real test. The next one will be harder. What next test? London. Social season starts in 6 weeks. Every noble family in the country will hear about this. Some will admire you. Most will view you as a threat, a nobody who married above her station and immediately started executing staff. They'll come for you at every party, every dinner, every ball. You'll need to be stronger than you were today. Evelyn looked at him, this man who'd bought her like property, then given her power, then stood back and let her fight her own battles. Why are you helping me? Because I need you strong. No poetry, just fact. Weak wives are liabilities. Strong ones are assets. You're becoming an asset. That's all this is? Asset management? Something flickered in his eyes. For now. Ask me again in 6 months. He walked away, leaving her standing in an empty hall in a house that had just become slightly less hostile, with the knowledge that she'd made an enemy who'd threatened her life and a husband who'd defended her for purely practical reasons. But she was still standing. That had to count for something. The next 3 weeks passed in a blur of reorganization. Evelyn promoted Mary to head housemaid. The girl was young but competent and desperately grateful for the opportunity. She hired a new steward from London to manage accounts, conducted interviews with every staff member to understand household operations, and began implementing changes. Some worked, some didn't. She made mistakes, hired a cook who lasted 2 days before quitting, reorganized the cleaning schedule in a way that created more work instead of less, accidentally insulted the stable master by questioning his feed expenses. But she learned, adapted, got better. Adrian watched it all with those calculating eyes, occasionally offering advice, mostly letting her figure things out through trial and error. Their marriage remained what it had started as, a business arrangement, They ate dinner together most nights, discussed household matters, and then went to separate bedrooms. No affection. No intimacy beyond the purely transactional. Evelyn told herself that was fine, better than fine. She hadn't married for love. She'd married because the alternative was worse. But sometimes late at night, she wondered what it would be like if he looked at her with something other than professional assessment. The invitation arrived on a Tuesday. Heavy cream paper. Gold leaf lettering. The Duke and Duchess of Thornmere were cordially invited to the season opening ball at the Duchess of Pemberton's London residence. Black tie. Attendance expected. Evelyn stared at it over breakfast. Pemberton. That's your sister's new family, Adrian said without looking up from his newspaper. Henry Pemberton's mother is hosting. She's one of the most influential women in London society. This is a test. Of what? Whether you can function in the world you've married into. He folded the paper. We'll need to be in London by Friday. I'll arrange accommodations. You'll need appropriate clothes. I've contacted a modiste who'll meet us there. I don't know how to navigate society events. You'll learn. Same way you learned to run Thornmere. Trial, error, and refusing to break. His smile was sharp. Besides, your sister will be there. That should be entertaining. Entertaining wasn't the word Evelyn would have chosen. London hit like a wall of noise and stench and humanity. The townhouse Adrian kept in Mayfair was elegant, smaller than Thornmere but expensively appointed. Staff materialized from nowhere to unpack trunks and prepare rooms. The modiste arrived that evening with 6 assistants and enough fabric to clothe a small army. Madame Levine, she introduced herself in an accent that was probably French but sounded practiced. His Grace has commissioned a complete wardrobe. We begin with the ball gown. I'm thinking deep emerald to complement your coloring, or perhaps sapphire. You have excellent bone structure. We can work with this. 4 hours later, Evelyn stood in a gown that cost more than she'd spent on clothes in her entire life. Deep green silk that moved like water, fitted bodice that made her waist look smaller than it was, neckline that showed just enough skin to be fashionable without being scandalous. She barely recognized herself in the mirror. Perfect, Madame Levine declared. You'll devastate them. The ball was 2 days away. Adrian spent them preparing her like she was going into battle, which, he made clear, she was. The Duchess of Pemberton is powerful, but not invincible, he explained over dinner the night before. She'll want to assess you, determine if you're a threat or an opportunity. Your sister will likely be positioned prominently. New bride, advantageous match. They'll be watching to see if you're jealous. I'm not. Good. Don't show it anyway. Jealousy is weakness. He cut into his steak with surgical precision. You'll be introduced to approximately 80 people. Most will forget you immediately. The ones who remember are either potential allies or enemies. Learn to tell the difference. How? Allies ask questions. Enemies make statements. He looked up. And Evelyn? Don't mention Mrs. Thorne. That story's already circulating, but letting them bring it up first gives you control of the narrative. What if they ask directly? Then you tell the truth. You discovered theft, presented evidence, and the perpetrator was dismissed. No embellishment, no justification, state facts, and move on. She practiced in the mirror that night. Posture, smile. The art of looking confident when her stomach was trying to revolt. She'd faced down a murderous housekeeper. She could handle a ballroom full of aristocrats. Probably. The Pemberton mansion was obscene. White marble. Columns. A ballroom that could have fit her childhood home 3 times over. Gas lamps and crystal chandeliers turning the space into something from a fever dream. Adrian offered his arm as they climbed the entrance steps. Ready? No. Excellent. Fear keeps you sharp. They were announced at the ballroom entrance. The Duke and Duchess of Thornmere. Conversation didn't stop, but it shifted. Heads turned. Evelyn felt 60 pairs of eyes evaluate her from hair to hem in the space of a heartbeat. The Duchess of Pemberton materialized from the crowd, an elegant woman in her 50s, dripping diamonds and authority. Thornmere, how delightful you could attend. Her smile was all teeth. And this must be your new Duchess. My dear, you're even lovelier than the rumors suggested. You're too kind, Your Grace, Evelyn said. Not at all. Do come meet some people. I'm sure you're eager to make connections. She swept Evelyn away from Adrian before either could object. Suddenly, Evelyn was surrounded by women in expensive gowns, all smiling with varying degrees of sincerity. This is Lady Hartwick, Countess of Somerset, Mrs. Pemberton. Oh, but you know her, don't you? She's your sister, I believe. Catherine stood there in pale pink, looking like a porcelain doll. She smiled. Evelyn, how wonderful to see you. Catherine, Evelyn's voice came out steady. You look well. Marriage agrees with me. Her eyes flicked over Evelyn's gown with something that might have been envy. That's quite a dress. Thornmere must be generous. He is. Evelyn kept her smile pleasant. Though I understand your husband's family is equally well situated. Congratulations on your match. Yes, well, some of us marry for love rather than necessity. Catherine's smile sharpened. But I'm sure you'll be very happy together. The surrounding women went still. That was a direct insult, implying Evelyn had married for money while Catherine had married for affection. Evelyn met her sister's eyes. Love is wonderful. So is respect. I hope you have both. Respect? Catherine's laugh was light. From the man who bought you like livestock? How charming! The Duchess of Pemberton's eyes gleamed. This was better entertainment than she'd hoped. Evelyn felt something cold settle in her chest. Better bought with honest terms than sold by dishonest family. At least my husband told me what the marriage would be. Did yours? Catherine's smile froze. I think that's quite enough, the Duchess of Pemberton said quickly. Lady Hartwick, perhaps you could show the new Duchess the gardens? An older woman, Lady Hartwick, took Evelyn's arm and steered her away before blood could be drawn. They escaped to a terrace overlooking manicured lawns. Well, Lady Hartwick said, that was interesting. I shouldn't have said that. No, you should have. Your sister was testing you in front of an audience. You passed. The older woman pulled out a silver case, extracted a cigarette. Mind if I smoke? Nasty habit, but I'm old enough not to care. Please. Lady Hartwick lit the cigarette, exhaled smoke into the night air. I knew your husband's first wife. Vivian, sweet girl. Too soft for this world. When I heard he'd remarried, I assumed he'd found another delicate flower to replace her. She smiled. I'm pleased to be wrong. I'm not sure what I am yet. You're a survivor. I can spot them. I'm one myself. Married at 16 to a brute who drank himself to death by the time I was 25. Spent the next 30 years learning how to navigate this world without a man's protection. She tapped Ash over the balcony. Advice. Don't apologize for fighting back. These people respect strength. Show weakness, and they'll destroy you. Mrs. Thorne said something similar. The housekeeper Thornmere fired? I heard about that. Rumor is you're the one who brought her down. Lady Hartwick's eyes were sharp. True? Yes. Good. She was a vicious creature. I'm glad someone finally dealt with her. She finished the cigarette, crushed it beneath her heel. Come. Let's get you back inside before your husband thinks I've kidnapped you. They returned to the ballroom. Adrian stood near the far wall, talking with a group of men who looked like they ate smaller nobles for breakfast. He caught Evelyn's eye, raised an eyebrow in question. She nodded slightly. I'm fine. The rest of the evening passed in a blur of introductions, names she'd never remember, faces that blended together, comments that ranged from genuinely kind to subtly cutting. She smiled through all of it, played her role, and felt like she was drowning in lace and false courtesy. Until a man stepped into her path. He was handsome in the way snakes are elegant, refined features, expensive clothes, smile that didn't reach his eyes, mid-30s maybe, power radiating from him like heat from a fire. The new Duchess of Thornmere, he said. I've been dying to meet you. I'm afraid you have me at a disadvantage, sir. Lord Ravenscroft, Edmund Ravenscroft. He took her hand, brought it to his lips, held it a fraction too long. Your husband and I have history. Edmund, Adrian's voice cut across the space between them. He materialized beside Evelyn, took her hand from Ravenscroft's grip. Still slithering through ballrooms, I see. Thornmere, congratulations on your marriage. Ravenscroft's smile was poison. Though I must say I'm surprised. After Vivian, I thought you'd sworn off wives entirely. What changed? I needed an heir, Supply and demand. How romantic. Ravencroft's eyes slid to Evelyn. And you, Duchess, are you satisfied with being purchased for breeding purposes? Adrian's hand tightened on hers. Evelyn felt tension radiating from him like electricity before a storm. I'm satisfied with honesty, she said. My husband told me exactly what he wanted. No pretty lies. No false promises. That's more than most women get. How pragmatic. Thornmere always did prefer practical arrangements. Ravencroft leaned closer. Tell me, does he still wake screaming from nightmares? He did when I knew him, back when we were boys, before he learned to lock all those messy emotions away. That's enough. Adrian's voice could have cut glass. Is it? I think the new Duchess should know what she's married. The boy who watched his father beat servants for sport, who learned cruelty at his father's knee and perfected it into an art form. Ravencroft's smile widened. Or hasn't he told you about the summer his father locked him in the wine cellar for a week as punishment? He came out different, harder. Some might say broken. Evelyn looked at Adrian. His face was carved stone, but his eyes held something she'd never seen before. Fear. Not of Ravencroft, of what she might think now that she knew. My husband's past is his business, Evelyn said quietly. Whatever he survived made him who he is. I'm not interested in judging trauma. Ravencroft's smile faded. How disappointing. I was hoping for more drama. Then you'll have to get it elsewhere. Adrian steered Evelyn away before Ravencroft could respond. They walked to a quiet corner away from the crowd. I'm sorry, he said. Edmund and I have history. He enjoys twisting knives. Is it true? About your father? Yes. No elaboration. No excuses. I'm sorry that happened to you. He looked at her like she'd spoken a foreign language. You're not disgusted. Why would I be? You survived a monster. That takes strength, not weakness. Something shifted in his expression. Not quite warmth, but something adjacent to it. We're leaving, he said. This was enough for one night. They made their excuses to the Duchess of Pemberton, collected their coats, and escaped into the night. The carriage ride back was silent. Evelyn kept stealing glances at Adrian, seeing him differently now. Not the calculating businessman who'd bought her, the boy who'd survived hell and built walls to protect what was left. At the townhouse, he walked her to her door. Thank you, he said. For what? For not pitying me. For not making it worse. He hesitated. You did well tonight. Better than well. You handled Catherine, charmed Lady Hartwick, and didn't let Ravencroft rattle you. I'm impressed. Impressed enough to tell me what he meant by history? Edmund's father and mine were business partners until Edmund's father tried to cheat mine on a deal. My father destroyed him. Bankruptcy, scandal, social exile. The man hung himself. Edmund inherited debts and hatred in equal measure. Adrian's jaw tightened. He spent 20 years trying to destroy me in return. So far he's failed, but he's patient. Should I be worried about him? Probably. He's dangerous in ways that don't leave obvious marks. Adrian pushed her door open. Get some rest. Tomorrow we'll... The sound came from inside her room. A creak, like weight shifting on floorboards. Adrian's hand shot out, pushing Evelyn behind him. He moved into the room with predatory silence, scanning shadows. Empty. No one there. But her wardrobe stood open, dresses pulled from hangers and shredded, fabric slashed beyond repair. On her mirror, written in what looked like black ink but smelled like blood. Accidents happen. Mrs. Thorne's last words. Adrian stood very still. Then he turned to Evelyn, and his eyes held murder. Pack a bag, he said quietly. We're leaving London tonight. What? Now, Evelyn. Someone knows where you sleep. Evelyn didn't argue. She grabbed her traveling bag, threw in whatever she could reach, and followed Adrian down the back stairs. His men were already moving, 2 stationed at doors, another bringing the carriage around, all moving with military precision. Where are we going? She asked as the carriage lurched into motion. Somewhere she can't reach you. Adrian's face was granite in the lamplight. Mrs. Thorne has contacts throughout London, servants, tradespeople, people who owe her favors. Until I know who helped her get into that room, nowhere in this city is safe. You think she's still in London? I think she never left. I think she's been waiting for an opportunity, and tonight we handed her one by being predictable. His jaw tightened. My mistake. I should have anticipated this. You can't predict everything. When it comes to enemies who've already killed once, yes, I can. I should have. He looked out the window at dark streets rushing past. We're going to Hartwick Manor. Lady Hartwick offered her residence if we needed it. She has security and no love for Mrs. Thorne. The journey took 2 hours. Evelyn spent them replaying the evening, Catherine's insults, Ravencroft's revelations, the shredded dresses and blood on the mirror. Someone had been in her room while they were at the ball, had stood among her things, destroyed them, left a threat, had maybe waited to do worse. Her hands wouldn't stop shaking. Adrian noticed. He pulled off his coat, draped it over her shoulders without a word. It smelled like him, expensive cologne and something darker, leather and smoke. She won't touch you again, he said quietly. I promise you that. You can't promise. Yes, I can. Because I'm going to find her, and when I do, she's going to wish I'd just had her arrested. His voice held something colder than anger. Intent. No one threatens what's mine. Evelyn looked at him. I'm not property. No, but you're under my protection, which makes you my responsibility. And I don't tolerate threats to my responsibilities. It wasn't a declaration of affection. It was a statement of ownership, barely dressed up. But the fierceness in his voice made something warm unfurl in Evelyn's chest anyway. She was starting to understand him. Adrian didn't know how to express care in conventional ways, but protecting what was his, that he understood down to his bones. Hartwick Manor materialized from darkness, a sprawling estate lit by torches, guards visible at the gate. Lady Hartwick herself stood on the front steps in a dressing gown, cigarette glowing in the dark. Thornmere, she called as they climbed out. Your message said emergency. I see you weren't exaggerating. Someone broke into our London residence and threatened the Duchess. I need somewhere secure while I handle it. Of course, come in. She stubbed out the cigarette. I've had rooms prepared. Your wife looks half dead on her feet. Evelyn wanted to argue but couldn't. Exhaustion was hitting like a physical weight. Lady Hartwick guided her to a suite in the east wing, smaller than her rooms at Thornmere, but comfortable, with a fire already burning in the hearth. Sleep, the older woman commanded. My guards will patrol all night. You're safe here. Thank you. Thank me by surviving. I've grown fond of you in one evening. It would be tedious if you got yourself killed. She left, closing the door firmly behind her. Evelyn collapsed onto the bed, still wearing her ball gown. She should change, should wash, should do any number of practical things. Instead, she pulled Adrian's coat tighter around herself and let exhaustion drag her under. Morning came with sunlight and the smell of breakfast. Evelyn woke disoriented, still in her ruined gown, makeup smeared across expensive pillowcases. She cleaned up as best she could with the wash basin provided, changed into the one simple dress she'd managed to pack, and went looking for Adrian. She found him in Lady Hartwick's study with 3 men she didn't recognize. Maps spread across the desk, lists of names. They all looked up when she entered. Duchess? One of the men said. He was older, scarred, built like a brawler. We were just discussing security arrangements. This is Matthews, Adrian said. Former military. He runs my personal security when needed. Matthews? My wife. Matthews nodded. Your Grace, we've identified 3 people with access to your London residence who have connections to Mrs. Thorne. We're tracking them now. What about Mrs. Thorne herself? No sign yet. But London's a big city. She could be anywhere. His expression was grim. With respect, Your Grace, you made a powerful enemy. Women like that don't forgive. I know. Evelyn moved to the desk, studied the maps. Central London, marked with locations. What are these? Places Mrs. Thorne has known associates, Adrian said. We're checking each one. So far, nothing. You won't find her in London. Everyone looked at her. Explain, Adrian said. She's smart. She knows you'll search London, so she won't be here. She'll go somewhere she has leverage. Somewhere she knows you can't easily follow. Evelyn's mind was working through the problem like it was a household budget requiring balancing. Where did she work before Thornmere? Adrian frowned. She's been at Thornmere for 30 years. Before that, everyone comes from somewhere. Matthews shuffled through papers. According to her employment records, she worked for the Earl of Westmont prior to Thornmere, family estate in Derbyshire. Is the Earl still alive? No, died 10 years ago. His son inherited but lost the estate to creditors shortly after. It's abandoned now. Evelyn met Adrian's eyes. That's where she is. Somewhere she knows. Somewhere you'd never think to look. Somewhere with enough isolation that she could hide for months. That's a significant assumption. It's what I would do. Go somewhere familiar where I had the advantage. She pulled the Derbyshire map closer. How far is it? 6 hours by train. Another hour to the estate itself. Adrian studied her face. You think she's waiting there? I think she's planning there. She threatened me but didn't act immediately. That means she's building to something, and building requires time and space. Matthews looked impressed. The Duchess might be right. It's the kind of place someone could disappear. Then we go there, yeah? Adrian said. Matthews, I want 6 men, armed. We leave in 2 hours. Wait. Evelyn held up a hand. If you show up with armed men, she'll run. Or worse, she'll fight, and people will get hurt. That's the point. No, it's not. The point is to end this. She took a breath. Let me go. The room went silent. Absolutely not, Adrian said. Listen, she wants me, not you. If I show up alone, you'll get killed. Not if I'm careful. Not if I use her hatred against her. Evelyn's pulse was racing, but her mind was clear. She thinks I'm weak, spoiled, bought. Let her keep thinking that. I go to the estate, tell her I want to negotiate. While she's focused on me, your men get into position. You're describing using yourself as bait. I'm describing giving her what she wants while we control the circumstances. Evelyn met his gaze. You said I needed to be strong enough for what's coming. This is what's coming. Let me handle it. Matthews cleared his throat. It's not a terrible plan, Your Grace. We could position men around the estate before she arrives. Hidden. The Duchess goes in, keeps Mrs. Thorne talking while we close the net. And if something goes wrong? Adrian's voice was tight. If Mrs. Thorne decides to kill her immediately instead of talking, then you'll be close enough to intervene. Evelyn kept her voice steady. But I don't think she will. She wants me to suffer first. That requires conversation. Adrian stared at her for a long moment. No. Adrian, I said no. I'm not risking you like that. It's not your risk to take. It's mine. She stepped closer. You told me I needed to prove I could survive this world. Let me prove it. Not by getting yourself killed. Then come with me. Not with an army, just you. We go together, face her together. Evelyn's hands were shaking, but she kept them steady. You and me, like partners instead of you protecting your investment. Something shifted in his expression. You're serious? Completely. He looked at Matthews. Can we do it? Position men without being seen? The estate's been abandoned for years, plenty of cover. If we go in before dawn, we can have the place surrounded by the time the Duchess and Mrs. Thorne meet. Matthews pulled out a different map, detailed property layout. There's a main house, stables, groundskeeper's cottage. If Mrs. Thorne is there, she'll be in one of those 3 buildings. The cottage, Evelyn said. It's smaller, easier to secure and defend. That's where she'll be. Adrian studied the map. Then her. You understand if this goes wrong, you could die. I understand that if we do nothing, she'll keep coming. This ends it, one way or another. He was quiet for a long moment. All right, we do it your way. But my men are there, hidden, ready to intervene at the first sign of real danger. Agreed. Matthews started issuing orders. The other men scattered to prepare. Adrian pulled Evelyn aside. This is insane, he said quietly. Probably. If anything happens to you, it won't. You don't know that. She looked up at him. Why does it matter? I'm just an investment, remember? His jaw tightened. You stopped being just an investment the moment you went after Mrs. Thorne the first time. Now you're... He stopped. Important. To the estate's stability. To household operations. To you? Yes. The admission seemed to cost him. To me. It wasn't a declaration of love. But from a man who'd learned to survive by not caring about anything, it was something. Evelyn reached up, touched his face. Then trust me. I've survived being sold by my family and nearly killed by your housekeeper. I can survive this." He caught her hand, held it against his cheek. "You're either the bravest person I've ever met or the most foolish." "Probably both." He almost smiled. "We leave at midnight. Get some rest." The train to Derbyshire departed at 1 in the morning. Adrian had bought out an entire car, just them, Matthews, and 4 other men who looked like they ate danger for breakfast. The countryside rolled past in darkness, invisible except where moonlight caught on rivers or fields. Evelyn couldn't sleep. She kept running through scenarios, planning what she'd say, how she'd handle Mrs. Thorne's inevitable threats. Adrian sat across from her, equally wakeful, reading the same page of a report 3 times without seeming to process it. "Tell me about Vivian," Evelyn said finally. He looked up. "Why?" "Because Mrs. Thorne killed her over household management. I need to understand what I'm walking into." Adrian set down the report. Vivian was kind, genuinely kind, not performative. She saw the best in people even when they showed her their worst. She wanted to make Thornmere gentler, warmer. She fought with Mrs. Thorne constantly over working conditions, wages, treatment of junior staff. And Mrs. Thorne killed her for it. "I believe so. Can't prove it, but yes." His face was shadowed. "Vivian told me the night before she died that she'd found evidence of financial irregularities. Planned to show me the next day. She went riding that morning and never came back. The evidence was gone when I searched her rooms." "You loved her." "I respected her, cared for her. Whether that was love, I don't know. I was young. She was the first person who'd been kind to me since before my father turned cruel." He looked out the window. "After she died, I locked that away. Decided caring made you vulnerable, kept everyone at a distance. Until now? Until you walked into my study with ledgers proving what I'd suspected for years and the courage to do something about it." He met her eyes. "You're nothing like Vivian. You're harder, sharper, less willing to see the best in people, but you're strong in ways she never was." "Is that a compliment?" "It's an observation, but yes, it's a compliment." The train rattled through a tunnel, plunging them into darkness. When they emerged, dawn was starting to break, pink and gold light touching the edges of the world. "We're close," Matthews said. "The state's about 10 miles from the next station." They disembarked into cold morning air. Horses were waiting. Adrian had sent word ahead. The ride to the estate took 90 minutes through countryside that had seen better days. Fields gone to seed, fences broken, a landscape slowly being reclaimed by nature. The estate itself looked like something from a ghost story. Stone walls crumbling, windows broken, vines crawling up walls like they were trying to pull the building down into earth. Matthews and his men scattered into position. Within 20 minutes, they'd disappeared into the landscape so completely Evelyn couldn't spot them, even knowing where they'd gone. "She's here," Matthews whispered, returning briefly. Smoke from the groundskeeper's cottage chimney. One person moving around inside. "How do you want to do this?" Adrian asked Evelyn. "I walk up, knock, talk." She checked the small knife Adrian had insisted she carry in her boot. "You stay close but out of sight. If she tries anything, you intervene. If she tries anything, I'll kill her." "Fair enough." Evelyn started across the overgrown grounds. The cottage sat at the edge of the property, backed against woods. Smoke curled from the chimney. Through a grimy window, she could see movement inside. She knocked. Silence. Then footsteps. The door opened. Mrs. Thorne looked older than Evelyn remembered. Thinner, harder, but her eyes held the same vicious intelligence. "Well," she said, "the little Duchess. Come to beg for mercy?" "Come to talk." Evelyn kept her voice steady. "May I come in?" Mrs. Thorne's smile was sharp. "Why not? I've been expecting you." The cottage interior was sparse. A bed, a table, a chair. Evidence of someone living rough but organized. Mrs. Thorne gestured to the chair. "Sit. Let's talk." Evelyn sat. Mrs. Thorne remained standing, circling like a predator. "You're either very brave or very stupid to come here alone," the older woman said. "I'm not alone. Thornmere and 6 armed men are positioned around this cottage. But I wanted to talk before this turns violent. Mrs. Thorne's smile didn't waver. Of course he is. Your husband's nothing if not predictable. Tell me, dear, do you really think you've won? I think I survived your threat and tracked you to your hiding place. That feels like winning. You survived one threat. There will be others. I have friends, people who owe me favors. They'll come for you eventually. Mrs. Thorne leaned against the table. You've made yourself a target. A nobody who married above her station and started executing her betters. The Ton won't forget that. The Ton respects strength. I showed them I won't be pushed around. You showed them you're dangerous. Dangerous women don't last long in our world. Accidents happen. You should know. You accused me of arranging one. Did you? Kill Vivian Blackwood? Mrs. Thorne's smile widened. What do you think? I think you did. I think she discovered what you were doing and you couldn't let her expose it, so you sabotaged her horse and watched her die. Prove it. I don't need to. I just need you to confirm it. Adrian's listening to every word. Evelyn gestured subtly toward the window where she knew he'd positioned himself. This conversation is his evidence. Mrs. Thorne's expression flickered. You're bluffing. Am I? You know him better than that. He's been waiting 6 years for proof. I just gave it to him. Even if I did kill her, which I'm not admitting, there's no evidence, no witnesses, nothing that would hold up in court. Who said anything about court? Evelyn stood. You threatened a duchess. Admitted to murder. My husband doesn't need courts. He has money, power, and a very creative approach to justice. Mrs. Thorne's hand moved to her pocket. Evelyn tensed, ready to run, but the woman just pulled out a letter. I wrote this before you arrived, she said, addressed to every major newspaper in London. Detailed account of how the Duke of Thornmere's new wife orchestrated a scheme to frame me for theft and murder, how she's manipulating him, how she's dangerous. She held up the letter. One word from me and this gets delivered. Your reputation will be destroyed. Send it. Evelyn's heart was pounding. I'll survive scandal. I survived worse. Will you survive this? Mrs. Thorne pulled a pistol from her other pocket, small, easily concealed, pointed directly at Evelyn's chest. I don't think you understand, the older woman said softly. I've lost everything because of you. My position, my security, my future. If I'm going down, I'm taking you with me. The door exploded inward. Adrian came through like a storm, Matthews right behind him. Mrs. Thorne spun, pistol tracking toward Adrian. Evelyn didn't think. She grabbed the chair and swung it hard into Mrs. Thorne's arm. The gun went off, deafening in the small space. The bullet hit the ceiling. Plaster rained down. Matthews tackled Mrs. Thorne. The pistol clattered away. Adrian pulled Evelyn back, hands running over her, checking for injuries. Are you hurt? No, I'm fine. You're insane. That was insane. But his grip was tight, almost desperate. She could have killed you. But she didn't. Evelyn's hands were shaking now that it was over. Did you hear everything? Every word, including her admission about Vivian. His face was stone as he looked at Mrs. Thorne, now held firmly by Matthews and another guard. I should kill you. Then do it, Mrs. Thorne spat. I'm not afraid of you. No, but you should be afraid of the courts. Murder, attempted murder, theft, conspiracy. That's enough to hang 3 times over. Adrian's voice was cold. Matthews, take her to the magistrate. Make sure he understands the charges. With pleasure, Your Grace. They hauled Mrs. Thorne out. She fought, screaming threats, but 6 armed men were more than enough. Her voice faded into distance. Adrian turned to Evelyn. That was the most reckless thing I've ever seen. It worked. You got a gun pointed at you. But we got a confession. She admitted everything. That's over now. Evelyn's legs were suddenly weak. She sat on the ruined chair, adrenaline crash hitting like a wave. It's over. Adrian crouched beside her. Are you sure you're not hurt? I'm sure. Just tired. He pulled her into his arms. Not a gentle embrace. A fierce, almost angry one. Like he was trying to convince himself she was real and whole. Don't do that again, he said against her hair. Do what? Risk yourself. I can't. He stopped. Just don't. Evelyn wrapped her arms around him, felt him shaking slightly. This man who never showed weakness was scared. For her. I won't, she whispered. I promise. They stayed like that for a long moment. Then Adrian pulled back, helped her stand. "We should go. Get you somewhere warm and safe." They walked back across overgrown grounds toward where the horses waited. Matthews was already gone with Mrs. Thorne. The other guards fell in around them, forming a protective circle. The ride back to the station passed in exhausted silence. The train to London was warmer, more comfortable. Evelyn dozed against Adrian's shoulder while he read documents and occasionally checked that she was still breathing. By the time they reached London, the story was already spreading. Word traveled fast in their world. The new Duchess of Thornmere had hunted down the woman who'd threatened her, had extracted a confession, had survived an attempt on her life and brought the criminal to justice. The society that had judged her at the ball was suddenly reassessing. Lady Hartwick was waiting when they returned to her manor. She took one look at Evelyn and smiled. "I knew I liked you," she said. "Come, you look half dead. Let's get you fed and rested, and then you can tell me everything." Over dinner, Evelyn recounted the confrontation. Lady Hartwick listened with growing appreciation. "You took a chair to an armed woman," she said when Evelyn finished. "Magnificent. Absolutely magnificent. Do you know what the Ton will say about this? That I'm reckless? That you're formidable. There's a difference." Lady Hartwick raised her wine glass. "To the Duchess of Thornmere, may she continue terrifying everyone." Adrian raised his glass as well. "To my wife, who I'm fairly certain will give me heart failure before the year is out." Evelyn looked between them. This fierce old woman who'd become an unlikely ally, this complicated man who'd become something more than a husband of convenience, and felt something shift in her chest. She'd come to London expecting to be destroyed. Instead, she'd destroyed her enemy, proven herself, earned respect, and somewhere in the process, stopped being just a bought bride and become something else entirely. The next morning, invitations started arriving. Tea with the Duchess of Somerset. Dinner with Lord and Lady Pemberton. Yes, Catherine's in-laws. A personal note from the Duchess of Pemberton herself, expressing admiration for Evelyn's strength of character. "They're courting you now," Lady Hartwick explained over breakfast. "You've proven you're not weak. That makes you valuable. Power respects power." "What about Catherine?" Evelyn asked. "Your sister's furious from what I hear. She wanted to be the celebrated new bride. Instead, you've stolen her spotlight entirely." Lady Hartwick smiled. "Delicious." Adrian appeared in the doorway. "We need to talk, privately." Evelyn followed him to Lady Hartwick's study. He closed the door, locked it. "The magistrate accepted the charges against Mrs. Thorne," he said. "She'll stand trial next month. Given the evidence and the attempted murder, she'll hang." "Good. There's something else." He pulled a document from his coat. Her letter, the one she threatened to send to newspapers. Matthews found it before she could deliver it. He handed it to Evelyn. She scanned the contents, lies mixed with just enough truth to be damaging. Claims that Evelyn had manipulated her way into marriage, falsified evidence, orchestrated everything for power. "What do we do with it?" she asked. "Burn it, or—" Adrian paused. "Use it." "How?" "Publish it ourselves, with a rebuttal. Show exactly what Mrs. Thorne did, the theft, the murder, the threats. Let the Ton see the full story from our perspective before rumors can twist it." He watched her face. "It's risky, but it would control the narrative." Evelyn thought about it. "Do it. I'm tired of letting other people tell my story." Adrian smiled. "I thought you'd say that. I'll have it prepared for tomorrow's papers." The next day, London exploded with the story. Every major newspaper carried it. Mrs. Thorne's accusations alongside point-by-point evidence of her crimes, testimonials from staff, financial records, and a statement from Adrian himself defending his wife's actions as justified and necessary. Public opinion turned on a coin. Evelyn went from scandalous upstart to celebrated heroine overnight. The woman who'd brought down a murderer. The Duchess who'd proven that justice mattered more than convenience. Invitations flooded in, not just polite social calls, real ones. People wanted to meet her, talk to her, understand her. A week later, Evelyn attended her first major event since the ball, a garden party hosted by the Duchess of Somerset. She wore emerald green, head high, Adrian at her side. Catherine was there. She looked like she'd swallowed broken glass when Evelyn entered. Their eyes met across the garden. Evelyn smiled. Catherine looked away first. Lady Hartwick appeared at Evelyn's elbow. That's the look of someone who just realized they backed the wrong horse. Your sister thought she'd be the important one. Now she's just Mrs. Pemberton, while you're the Duchess everyone wants to know. I don't need revenge, Evelyn said. No, but it's satisfying anyway. Lady Hartwick squeezed her arm. You've done well, my dear, better than anyone expected. Including yourself, I suspect. She walked away, leaving Evelyn standing in a garden full of people who'd dismissed her weeks ago and now competed for her attention. Adrian found her an hour later. Ready to leave? Not yet. Evelyn looked around at the crowd, at the life she'd built from nothing, at the power she'd claimed through intelligence and courage instead of birth. I want to stay a little longer. He studied her face. You're different than when we married. So are you. Am I? You smile more, or at least the corners of your mouth move occasionally. That's progress. She touched his arm. Thank you. For what? For trusting me. For letting me fight. For being, she searched for the right word, present. Something softened in his expression. You're welcome. They stood together in the garden while London society swirled around them, two people who'd started as a business transaction and become something neither had expected. Not quite love, not yet, but partnership, respect. The foundations of something that might, eventually, become more. The social season ground forward with relentless momentum. 3 weeks after Mrs. Thorne's arrest, London society had fully recalibrated. Evelyn was no longer the mysterious new Duchess. She was a force. Invitations arrived daily. Women who'd sneered at the ball now sought her advice. Men who'd dismissed her now competed for her attention at dinner parties. But it was the quiet moments that told the real story. Adrian had started eating breakfast with her, not reading documents, actually talking. About estate matters, yes, but also about books, about politics, about nothing in particular. He'd moved his study adjacent to her sitting room, claiming better light, though they both knew it was proximity he wanted. He still didn't say he cared, but he showed it in 100 small ways. Coffee prepared exactly how she liked it, her favorite flowers appearing in her rooms. The way his hand found hers at social events when the crowd got overwhelming. They were building something, slowly, carefully. Then Edmund Ravenscroft showed up at their London townhouse uninvited. Evelyn was reviewing household accounts when the butler announced him. She looked up from ledgers to find Ravenscroft standing in her sitting room doorway, smiling that snake smile. Lord Ravenscroft, she said coolly, I don't recall inviting you. I took the liberty. Your husband and I have unfinished business. He settled into a chair without permission. Where's Thornmere? His study. Shall I have you shown there? In a moment. First, I wanted to speak with you, woman to woman, so to speak. We're not equals. You're a guest, a rude one. His smile widened. I like you. You've got spine. More than Vivian ever did, certainly. She was too soft, too trusting. It made her easy to manipulate. Every instinct Evelyn had screamed danger. What do you mean by that? Exactly what I said. Vivian was a sweet girl who believed the best in everyone, even people who wanted to destroy her husband. Ravenscroft examined his nails. She and I had several conversations before her untimely death about Adrian's business practices, his ruthlessness, how he'd inherited his father's cruelty. I may have suggested she'd be safer if she gathered evidence against him. For her own protection, naturally. Evelyn's blood went cold. You used her. I gave her information. What she did with it was her choice. Unfortunately, that information made her a threat to someone else. Mrs. Thorne, as it turns out. Ironic, isn't it? I was trying to weaponize her against Adrian, and she ended up dead by someone else's hand entirely. Why are you telling me this? Because I want you to understand what you're dealing with. He leaned forward. Adrian Blackwood destroys everything he touches. His father was a monster, yes, but Adrian learned those lessons well. He's just better at hiding it. Sooner or later, he'll turn that ruthlessness on you. He already showed me his ruthlessness. He forced me into marriage, used me to stabilize his household, and made clear from day one what this was. At least he's honest about it. Is he? Has he told you about the tenants he evicted last winter? Entire families thrown out in the cold because they were 3 weeks behind on rent. Has he told you about the business partner who mysteriously lost everything after a minor disagreement? About the servants who've disappeared over the years when they knew too much? Those are stories. You have no proof. Don't I? Ravencroft pulled out a leather folder. I've been collecting evidence for years. Every questionable deal, every suspicious disappearance, every act of cruelty disguised as business. Take it, read it, then decide if you want to stay married to a monster. He set the folder on the table between them and stood. One more thing, he said at the door. Mrs. Thorne reached out to me before her arrest, asked for help. I declined. She was sloppy, and sloppy people get caught. But she mentioned something interesting. She said you remind her of Vivian, kind, naive, dangerous to yourself. His smile was cold. She was wrong about the kind part, but the dangerous to yourself part? That might still be accurate. He left. Evelyn stared at the folder like it might bite her. Every instinct said burn it. Don't look. Don't let Ravencroft poison what she and Adrian were building. But curiosity and caution were equally strong. She opened it. The first document was an eviction notice, dated 6 months ago. 3 families removed from Thornmere tenant cottages for non-payment. Standard procedure, except for the note in Adrian's handwriting at the bottom. Make an example. Others need to understand consequences. The second was a business contract, a shipping partnership that dissolved when Adrian's partner couldn't meet terms. Within 3 months, the man had lost his ships, his warehouse, everything. Coincidence or calculated destruction? More documents, more questions, a pattern of ruthlessness that went beyond practical business and into something darker. Evelyn was still reading when Adrian found her an hour later. He stopped in the doorway, saw the folder, and his expression went carefully blank. Ravencroft was here, he said. Not a question. Yes. And he gave you that? Yes. Adrian crossed to the table, looked at the documents spread there. Did you read it all? Most of it. And? Is it true? Evelyn looked up at him. The evictions. The business partner. All of it? He sat down across from her. Yes. No excuses, no justifications, just acknowledgement. The tenants were 3 weeks behind, she said. That's not long. Most landlords give 3 months. Most landlords get taken advantage of. I can't afford weakness. The business partner's contract had impossible terms. You set him up to fail. He cheated my father. He deserved to fail. These servants who disappeared stole from the estate and were given the choice between prosecution or quiet dismissal. They chose dismissal. Adrian's voice was level. Everything in that folder is true. And everything was necessary. Necessary or vengeful? Both. He met her eyes. I told you from the beginning what I am. I'm not a good man, Evelyn. I'm a practical one. I do what's required to protect what's mine. At what cost? Whatever it takes. Evelyn looked at the documents again, at the evidence of a man who'd learned to survive by being harder than his enemies, who'd transformed trauma into strategy and never looked back. Ravencroft wants me to leave you, she said. I assumed as much. He said you'll eventually turn this ruthlessness on me. I won't. How can you be sure? Adrian leaned forward. Because you're not my enemy. You're my partner. Everything I've done, every harsh decision, every calculated move, has been to protect and build what's mine. You're part of that now. Hurting you would be hurting myself. That's not romantic. No, but it's honest. His hand covered hers. I can't promise you poetry or grand gestures. I can promise you that I will protect you with everything I have, support your decisions even when I disagree, and never lie to you about who I am. That's more than most marriages offer. Evelyn thought about her mother's lies, Catherine's betrayal, the pretty words that had masked ugly truths her whole life. Then she looked at Adrian, this complicated, damaged man who'd given her power instead of pretty phrases, who'd backed her against enemies, who'd been brutally honest about his limitations from day one. Ravencroft wants to destroy you, she said. He's been trying for 20 years. I think he's planning something bigger. He came here to plant doubt, which means he's building towards something else. She gathered the documents. We need to figure out what. Adrian blinked. You're not leaving? Why would I leave? Because you're ruthless? I already knew that. Because you've made hard decisions, so have I. She stood. I didn't marry you thinking you were perfect. I married you knowing exactly what you were. That hasn't changed. You're remarkable. He said it quietly, like the words surprised him. I'm practical. There's a difference. But she smiled. Now tell me everything you know about Ravencroft's current business interests. If he's planning something, we're going to see it coming. They spent the next week investigating. Adrian's network of informants was impressive. Dock workers, clerks, servants in rival households. Information flowed like water when you knew how to ask and what to pay. The picture that emerged was troubling. Ravencroft was courting investors for a new railway venture. Massive project, connecting northern industrial cities to southern ports. The kind of project that could make fortunes or destroy them. He'd approached several of Adrian's business rivals, offering partnerships. He's building a coalition, Adrian said, studying maps in his study. Everyone who has reason to resent me gathered under one banner. The railway's real, but it's also cover. What he really wants is leverage. Leverage for what? To force me out. If he controls enough of the infrastructure I depend on for shipping and transport, he can strangle my business, make me choose between accepting his terms or losing everything. Evelyn traced the proposed railway route. This line goes through Thornmere land. Part of it, yes. Which means he needs your permission to build, or, she stopped, or he needs you not to have the land anymore. They looked at each other. He's going to try to force a sale, Adrian said, or find a way to take it legally. That's what this is about. Can he do that? If he can prove I'm unfit to manage the estate? Maybe. If he can manipulate debts or contracts? Possibly. Adrian's jaw tightened. He's been planning this for years, waiting for the right moment. The moment being your remarriage. A new duchess means potential instability, a chance to exploit uncertainty. Evelyn felt ice settle in her stomach. He's going to come after me, use me as leverage against you. Not if we move first. How? Adrian smiled. It wasn't a nice expression. We give him exactly what he wants, then we take it away. Well, the plan was audacious and possibly insane. Adrian would publicly announce he was considering selling part of Thornmere's northern lands, the exact parcels Ravencroft needed for his railway. He'd set up a competitive bidding process, let Ravencroft think he was winning, drive the price up as high as possible. Then, at the last moment, Adrian would withdraw the offer, announce he'd decided to develop the land himself, in partnership with several of Ravencroft's rivals, cut Ravencroft out entirely while fracturing his coalition. It's risky, Evelyn said when Adrian explained it. If he realizes what you're doing before you're ready, he could strike first. That's why we need to sell it. Make him believe I'm actually desperate enough to sell family land. Adrian looked at her. Which is where you come in. Me? You've been managing the estate accounts. You know the numbers better than anyone. I need you to present the case publicly, at the next major social event, that selling is the only financially responsible option. Make it believable enough that Ravencroft thinks he's already won. You want me to lie to all of London society. I want you to play a role, temporarily. He hesitated. If you're not comfortable with it, we'll find another way. Evelyn thought about it, about the risk, about the fact that if this went wrong, they'd both look like fools, about the fact that Ravencroft had manipulated Vivian and contributed to her death, then tried to do the same to Evelyn. What's the event? She asked. The Midwinter Ball. 3 weeks from now. Every major family will be there, including all of Ravencroft's potential investors. If you can make the case convincingly enough, he'll commit everything to securing those parcels. Then we destroy him. And if I can't sell it? Then we lose, and Ravencroft spends the next decade making our lives difficult. Adrian's expression was serious. I won't lie to you. This is dangerous. We're betting everything on your ability to deceive people who make lying a profession. No pressure, then. Massive pressure. But I think you can handle it. Evelyn stood, paced to the window. London stretched out below, thousands of lives intersecting in ways they'd never understand.